Why Angie Dickinson still refuses to watch this one episode she filmed in 1959. Born on September 30th, 1931, in Coleman, North Dakota. Angie Dickinson rose from small-town beginnings to become one of Hollywood's most captivating stars. Raised in California, she originally pursued a degree in business before winning a beauty pageant that led to her entry into acting. With her magnetic presence, sharp wit, and a signature blend of elegance and edge, Angie quickly caught the attention of directors and audiences alike. Her breakout came in the 1950s with roles alongside legends like John Wayne and Frank Sinatra, setting the stage for a long, varied career across both film and television. Though often celebrated for her glamorous image, Dickinson was more than a screen siren. She was a trailblazer who played complex, independent women in a time when Hollywood rarely allowed it. From pageant queen to Hollywood starlet, Angie Dickinson's early rise. Angie Dickinson's career began not on a soundstage, but on a beauty pageant stage. After winning second place in a local Miss America preliminary in the early 1950s, she caught the attention of talent scouts who saw more than just her beauty. They saw potential, encouraged to pursue acting. She landed small television roles in shows like Death Valley Days and the Colgate Comedy Hour. Her big break came in 1955 when she appeared on The Jimmy Durante Show, which led to a contract with Warner Brothers and increasingly prominent film roles. By the late 1950s, Dickinson was working alongside some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Her performance in Rio Bravo, 1959, opposite John Wayne and Dean Martin, cemented her as a serious actress with presence and allure. What made Angie stand out wasn't just her beauty. It was her ability to bring intelligence and emotional depth to the roles she played, even in her earliest performances. Angie Dickinson's unforgettable role in Rio Bravo. Angie Dickinson's defining role came in 1959 when she starred as Feathers in the classic Western Rio Bravo. Acting alongside legends like John Wayne, Dean Martin, and Ricky Nelson, Dickinson held her own as a confident, flirtatious, and fiercely independent woman. As Feathers, a glamorous gambler who develops feelings for Sheriff John T. Chance, played by Wayne, Dickinson brought a mix of sensuality, wit, and emotional strength rarely seen in female characters of Westerns at the time. Her performance was groundbreaking, not just because she was beautiful or charming, but because she had depth. She wasn't merely a love interest. She was a woman with agency, resilience, and a sharp tongue. Dickinson's chemistry with John Wayne was electric, and her presence brought a refreshing energy to a genre typically dominated by male leads. This role catapulted her into stardom and proved that she could not only stand beside Hollywood's biggest icons, but also steal the scene. Angie Dickinson's golden era in Hollywood and television. The peak of Angie Dickinson's career came during the 1960s and 1970s, a time when she effortlessly transitioned from film to television and became a household name. After her breakout in Rio Bravo, Dickinson starred in a series of successful films such as Ocean's 1960, alongside Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, The Killers, 1964, and Point Blank, 1967, where she played tough yet magnetic female leads. Her ability to balance glamour, intelligence, and emotional subtlety made her one of the most sought-after actresses of the era. However, her greatest professional triumph came in the mid-1970s with the groundbreaking TV series Policewoman, 1974-1978. As Sergeant Pepper Anderson, Dickinson broke barriers by becoming one of the first women to lead a network crime drama. The role wasn't just popular, it was revolutionary. Policewoman wasn't only a hit with viewers, it also inspired a generation of young women to consider careers in law enforcement. Dickinson earned a Golden Globe Award and multiple Emmy nominations, cementing her status as a television icon. At her peak, Angie Dickinson was more than a star. She was a symbol of strength, elegance, and progress in a male-dominated industry. Her choices challenged stereotypes, and her performances opened doors for future generations of actresses. Pepper Anderson broke the rules. How Angie Dickinson changed TV for women forever. When Policewoman first aired in 1974, it didn't just entertain, it changed the game. At a time when law enforcement dramas were packed with tough-talking male leads, Angie Dickinson made history by stepping into the role of Sergeant Suzanne Pepper Anderson, becoming the first woman to lead a primetime network crime series. Her character wasn't a sidekick or a damsel in distress. Pepper was smart, capable, confident, and compassionate. She could chase down criminals, solve complex cases, and still bring a human touch to the badge. The reaction was instant. Policewoman became a television hit, drawing in millions of viewers each week and turning Angie Dickinson into a household name. Her performance earned her a Golden Globe Award, but the real impact went far beyond Hollywood, across the country. Police departments saw a rise in applications from women, many of whom pointed directly to Pepper Anderson as their inspiration. For these women, Dickinson wasn't just playing a part. She was showing them what was possible. What made her portrayal so powerful was its balance. Pepper Anderson wasn't trying to imitate her male counterparts. She brought her own style of strength, one that combined determination with empathy, grit with grace. She proved that a woman could lead, fight, and protect while still embracing her femininity. And yes, she did it all in heels, adding a signature flair to her already trailblazing role. The influence of Policewoman didn't end when the show did. It kicked open the door for future female-led shows like Cagney and Lacey, Alias, and The Closer, helping reshape how women were portrayed in positions of authority on television. Angie Dickinson's performance helped redefine the very concept of a hero on the small screen. She wasn't just part of a successful series. She was a symbol of progress, a face of change, and a pioneer for generations of women who followed. In the world of television, some characters fade with time. But Sergeant Pepper Anderson and the woman who brought her to life left a mark that's still felt today. She couldn't watch Rio Bravo again, the hidden grief of Angie Dickinson. For decades, Rio Bravo has stood the test of time as one of the most beloved westerns in American cinema. Its enduring legacy is marked by iconic performances, gripping storytelling, and a unique blend of action and heart. Audiences still fondly recall the chemistry between the film's leading lady, Angie Dickinson, and the rest of the cast, including screen legends like John Wayne and Dean Martin. But behind that on-screen magic lies a painful truth, one that Angie herself has quietly carried for years. While the world sees Rio Bravo as a classic for her, it became something she could no longer bear to watch. The source of that pain? Ricky Nelson. Ricky Nelson, the teen idol who transitioned from pop stardom to film with an air of natural charisma, played the role of Colorado Ryan in Rio Bravo. He was only 17 when he joined the production, still just a boy in many ways, but already exuding that effortless cool that made him a national sensation. On screen, his character brought a youthful balance to the film's older, more hardened heroes. Off screen, he formed a quiet, meaningful friendship with Angie Dickinson. Dickinson would later describe Ricky as a gentle soul, someone who didn't speak much, but whose presence could light up a room. She remembered his shyness, his musical gifts, and the way he carried himself with a kind of subtle magnetism that drew people in. Their time together on set was short, but it left a lasting impression on her. Ricky wasn't just a co-star. He was a sweet, sincere young man with whom she had shared an authentic bond. Then came the tragedy that made Rio Bravo almost impossible for her to revisit. On December 31st, 1985, Ricky Nelson died in a horrific plane crash. The accident, which also claimed the lives of his fiancée and several of his band members, occurred as they were traveling to a concert. News of his sudden and tragic death stunned the world. But for Angie Dickinson, it hit on a deeply personal level. Though they had not worked together since their days on Rio Bravo, she had always held on to the memory of that kind-hearted teenager with the guitar slung over his shoulder and an innocent grin on his face. In interviews years later, when asked whether she ever watched the film again, her answer was heartbreakingly simple. I can't. Ricky's in it. He's so young, so alive. I just can't handle it. That sentence carried the weight of years of unspoken grief. For Angie, watching Rio Bravo wasn't just a trip down memory lane. It was the reopening of an emotional wound that had never fully healed. Seeing Ricky on screen, forever preserved in his youth and energy, brought back the reality of a life lost too soon. It wasn't about the movie anymore. It was about the loss. This part of Angie Dickinson's story was never plastered across tabloids or turned into headlines. It wasn't exploited for public sympathy or media attention. Instead, it quietly reflected a deeply human experience, grief carried with grace. Beneath her strong, glamorous exterior, Angie was a woman who had loved, lost, and remembered, all while keeping that sorrow tucked away from the world. She wasn't just looking back on a co-star. She was mourning a friend. And so, for her, Rio Bravo became more than just a movie. It became a memory too powerful to relive, a reminder of a young man full of promise who left an imprint not only on film history, but on the heart of one of its stars. After decades of silence, Angie Dickinson finally speaks out, a voice from Hollywood's golden age. For decades, Angie Dickinson remained a symbol of quiet strength, a figure from Hollywood's golden age who chose to step away from the spotlight rather than chase it. While her contemporaries wrote tell-all memoirs and made rounds on talk shows, Angie kept her distance, watching the world change, but saying very little about her own life, her career, or the people she once knew so intimately. But then, one day, in her late 80s, she finally spoke. In a rare interview that stunned both fans and industry insiders, Angie opened up about everything: her career highs, her regrets, her lost loves, and the Hollywood she once ruled. Her voice, though soft and reflective, carried the weight of wisdom earned through experience. She spoke not with bitterness, but with clarity, and after years of speculation, silence, and mystery, it was as if the curtain had been pulled back, if only for a brief moment. She talked about Frank Sinatra, her longtime friend and rumored love. She spoke of her admiration for Dean Martin and the respect she had for John Wayne. But she also confessed to loneliness, to the pain of outliving nearly all her peers, and to the emotional toll that fame took on her spirit. One of her most touching revelations came when she was asked why she stayed silent for so long. Her answer: sometimes silence is the only way to protect what's sacred. In an age of oversharing, her discretion felt almost radical. And yet, when she did speak, every word landed with impact. She reminded the world that not all legends have to scream to be heard. Some just wait for the right moment. This rare appearance wasn't a comeback or a publicity stunt. It was a gentle reclaiming of her story. And in doing so, Angie Dickinson proved once again that elegance never goes out of style. Angie Dickinson's quiet goodbye to Hollywood and the world. Angie Dickinson's passing marked the end of an era of elegance, subtle strength, and the kind of old Hollywood glamour that rarely exists anymore. She died peacefully at her Los Angeles home, surrounded by memories rather than people. Having long stepped away from the spotlight she once illuminated with effortless charm. For those who grew up watching her on screen, her death felt less like the loss of a celebrity and more like saying goodbye to a familiar voice in the room, a woman who had been part of their lives for decades. There was no dramatic headline, no star-studded funeral, no last-minute tribute show. True to her nature, Angie left the world the way she lived much of her final years, quietly, on her own terms. Her passing wasn't announced immediately. In fact, many fans only learned of it days or weeks later, when small obituaries began appearing in select Hollywood circles. But those who knew her best say that's exactly how she wanted it, though the cause of death was not made public. Sources close to the family say it was the result of natural causes, age simply catching up with a woman who had lived many lifetimes in one. Her body may have weakened, but her mind remained sharp until the end. She reportedly still watched old westerns, listened to jazz, and kept photos of her daughter and late friends nearby. What makes her passing especially poignant is how little she asked of the world as she left it. No monuments, no grand legacy statements, just memories. But those memories are rich and enduring. Angie Dickinson wasn't just a star. She was a survivor, a trailblazer, and a woman who taught generations that you can be strong without being loud and graceful without being passive. In death, as in life, she chose discretion over drama, and in doing so, Angie gave us one final lesson. Sometimes the most powerful goodbyes are whispered, not shouted. The legacy of Angie Dickinson. Angie Dickinson's legacy is not merely etched in the roles she played, but in the barriers she broke, the strength she embodied, and the quiet grace with which she navigated an often unforgiving industry. From the smoky western saloons of Rio Bravo to the gritty precincts of Policewoman, Dickinson redefined what it meant to be a female lead in Hollywood. She was never just eye candy. She was intelligence, presence, and power, all wrapped in a charm that didn't demand attention but commanded it. Perhaps her greatest gift to future generations of actresses was the normalization of complexity. In an era when women were often reduced to archetypes, the femme fatale, the damsel in distress, Angie brought nuance. She could be seductive without being submissive, tough without losing vulnerability. With her portrayal of Sergeant Pepper Anderson, she proved that women could lead, could carry a show, and could do so without sacrificing femininity. That singular performance paved the way for decades of female-led TV dramas. Off-screen, Dickinson's legacy is equally profound. She resisted the urge to conform, rejecting studio demands that tried to mold her into someone she wasn't. She aged gracefully in the public eye without chasing the illusions of youth. She was candid about her regrets, her heartbreaks, and her boundaries, especially her decision to step back from the limelight in later years. That decision, while misunderstood by some, became a blueprint for self-preservation in a culture obsessed with relevance. The lesson Angie Dickinson leaves behind is simple, but powerful. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to be everywhere to matter. You can lead by example, not by spectacle. Her strength lay in her silence, in the choices she didn't make for fame, and in the dignity with which she faced both applause and solitude. Today, her legacy lives on in every woman who dares to be layered, strong, and unapologetically herself, on screen and off. In remembering Angie Dickinson, we're reminded that longevity isn't just about fame. It's about integrity, courage, and authenticity.